Orlando Magic are pretty much done making moves in the 2024 NBA free agency period, so it's time for us to take a look back at what has happened over the last 3 or 4 days and review what exactly this means for the team going forward. But first, I'm going to ask everybody who's watching this video to make sure that they hit that like button and support this channel. We've been around for about a week now, and we are noticing that the most viewed videos are also the most liked videos. No surprise. So if there's any way that you guys want to support this channel, the best way to do it is by liking this video. So let's get into a quick summary of what's been going on in free agency. Probably the biggest, or at least most fan-loved move of this free agency has been the Mo Wagner re-signing. There was a lot of people who were very scared that he wouldn't re-sign, but he got re-signed today for 2 years, $22 million after declining the team declined his option for $8 million, so they gave him a little bit more money. He's obviously the brother to Franz, and this is something that has been probably a breath of fresh air in a sense for a lot of Magic fans who were very frustrated with some of the moves that the front office had done so far in this free agency period, and they were able to secure Mo Wagner for a couple more years. And this comes after re-signing Goga Bitadze, who obviously was probably more of a backup to Mo Wagner last year. Did start about 33 games, but it was one of those moves that definitely kind of scared, I think, a lot of fans because they thought, look, are they really going to run this big rotation of guys? Well, they are, and we'll talk about later what that could possibly mean going forward. But in other huge news today, and honestly surprising news, the Magic also restructured Jonathan Isaac's deal, and they ended up bringing him back in, and he is going to now be under contract for 5 years, including next year. He re-signed and restructured. He's got 4 years, $80+ million on his deal. Now, there's two ways that I think people could take this. One is, what are the Magic doing? Oh my goodness, this guy hasn't been healthy his entire career. And then the other could be, well, they re-signed him for a deal that is just about worth what he has been getting paid in recent years, and technically he had his best year, most healthiest year, if you will, last year, playing 60 games. So why not pay him right now? And then you have another team-friendly deal. That'll be kind of the theme here, a lot of team-friendly deals. But also, as I mentioned, the re-signing of Goga Bitadze was pretty big. 3 years, $25 million, boost the front court, and notably having him return before Mo Wagner scared everybody, but they got the deal done, and at the end of the day, can you really be mad? Now, also in other news, they re-signed Gary Harris to a 2-year, $15 million deal that was originally reported as 2 years, $14 million, was recently adjusted. Now, he had 0 points in Game 1 versus the Cavs, and a lot of people were not happy about the Gary Harris re-signing. Personally, I'm more so indifferent. I don't really think he'll have a huge role this year. I think it's just kind of a safety net. KCP will definitely kind of be inserted into that do-everything guard role rather than any sort of 3-and-D production that Gary Harris could have. He's not going to usurp that and go in front of KCP. Now, Hartenstein was a free agent everybody wanted, and he got $29 million, and while we pay these guys $27 million, I see why some are frustrated, but at the end of the day, I think we're looking at kind of this is just the reality of it, and we're going to have to deal with it. Now, in other news, before we kind of get into the reflection period of what happened in free agency and where we were right and where we were wrong, they tendered the qualifying offer to Trevlin Queen and declined qualifying offers to Chuma Okeke and Kevon Harris. I don't know if Okeke's going to be back, especially with this front court going on, and I don't think Kevon Harris is coming back, but we still have plenty of the two-way spots to fill. We have one more left on the active roster, and then a couple two-ways. And then we guaranteed Caleb Houston's contract going into his third year. He shot 37.1% from 3, and I think a lot of people were just wanting more active, more aggressive moves from the Magic, but I think this was kind of a no-brainer. He shot well enough to continue to stay with the team. And there's one name that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's going to be Markelle Fultz. I don't think he's going to come back now. We've pretty much used all of our cap so far, and I don't think that this team has any desire to go beyond the salary cap right now, especially for Markelle Fultz, and when they're trying to unclog the logjam that is this depth chart of young active players. So I think the Markelle Fultz era is over, unfortunately, but that's going to lead us into the era that's starting, and that's going to be KCP. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope joins the team, signed for 3 years, $66 million. This officially kind of moved us out of the Klay Thompson sweepstakes, but Maybe it wasn't possible because at the end of the day, his dad said he really wanted him to go to the Lakers. Dallas became a suitor very late in the game, and then at the end of the day, you kind of had to focus your way in on at some point on either Paul George or KCP. So, can you really fault the front office for doing that? I don't know. I don't believe so, but there you have it. Now, Paul George never ends up taking the meeting with the Orlando Magic. That's really unfortunate, but at the end of the day, I think it was kind of just a necessary thing that ended up happening. Obviously, he met with the Sixers camp in Los Angeles. It was overnight, didn't have time to meet with the team with the Magic, so they signed KCP. Thought it was going to be kind of a deal that would lure Paul George in to join the team, something that he could trust with the front office. Wasn't going to be that, and ended up being just a consolation prize. But not a bad one at that, because he will absolutely fill plenty of needs on this Magic team. Now, some takeaways that is going on right now in and around the Orlando Magic. I think it's got to be Mo Wagner's coming back, and Joe Ingles is probably also going to be that next domino to fall. And I think that that's going to round out the roster. Like I said earlier, I don't think Okiki's coming back, and I think that since the Magic are re-signing guys like Harris, Mo, and Badatse, they're probably more inclined to re-sign Ingles, and they're just collecting these team-friendly contracts that could, despite some of these guys having so much love from these fans and being fan favorites, they're probably going to end up being traded because they're going to have a lot of value on the trade market. They're team-friendly deals that are all very short, what we're looking at right now. So I see them bringing back Joe Ingles and maybe kind of finishing the job, so to speak, and end up dealing him at the deadline, or they might do the same with Wendell Carter Jr., who we could get into later. But also did want to mention one of the biggest things about this team and what the front office is doing is I think that they're really trusting in what Tristan da Silva can be. I think right now they're still trying to figure out what their depth chart looks like. I still think that they're trying to figure it out, but I think at the end of the day, they're really just saying, hey, da Silva's going to play some impact minutes, and Banchero's going to play better than he did last year. Franz playing better than he did last year. We're going to trust Suggs, so we're going to play it safe with some of these contracts, and we're going to say we're going to get the increased production from the guys that are already in-house, and we're just going to bring these guys in and make sure that we monitor the salary cap before you have to pay a ton of young guys. I think that that's what they're doing. Now, I did mention, obviously, the Wendell Carter thing. He's already had some interest from teams like the Pelicans. I don't know exactly if he's going to end up being dealt. If I'm being honest, I think that with the logjam that's going on right now, Goga's got $8.5 million, and is that to sit behind both of those guys? I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to have a bigger role, but he did start 30-plus games last year. And at the end of the day, they just restructured Jonathan Isaac's deal, and keeping Mo Wagner in-house, I think, was huge for just the morale of the organization. He's kind of been the rock, the backbone of the team, and I think Wendell Carter Jr. has kind of been taking a step back over the last couple of years. Certainly, at one point, we thought he was going to be a part of this team long term. That seems to not be the case exactly, and that's not a bad thing. That's not like the worst thing ever, but he just doesn't really exactly fit in what they're trying to do. And if we take a look at this depth chart right now, yeah, you have Carter Jr. starting at center, but we have Wagner and Badatse right behind him, and with Isaac already being acquired long-term, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with Wendell Carter Jr. All I know is when I'm looking at this depth chart, I'm seeing a lot of things that I like, but then a lot of stuff that is very movable. I don't know exactly how we're going to be able to fit some of these guys in the rotation. I mean, the small forward position is just absolutely log jammed, and obviously some of these players are a little out of position, but I don't know exactly where we're going to fit or who we're going to end up having to really invest our time in. But at a certain point, the Orlando Magic are going to be forced with some decisions to make. And we're just going to have to end up seeing what that is going to be. Now, they have used all of their cap, essentially, so this is pretty much over for what we're going to see. And I think that begs the question to end this. If free agency ended today, which it seems like it has, did the front office do enough to contribute to a better season next year? Well, considering they have obviously no cap space, this is where we are. And I do believe that they played it safe in this offseason, but I also think you can't control whether or not Paul George wants to come to your organization. You can't control if Klay Thompson's going to go elsewhere. But you were able to get KCP. You actually got and brought in a new player, and you re-signed a lot of these guys to team-friendly deals. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of this Jonathan Isaac move. I think it's very risky, and I think he's cashing in on a long-term deal after his best year. I think that's almost backwards of what the team should be doing, technically. But when he's out there on the court, he's one of the best defensive players in the NBA. He can impact the game by scoring 0 points. And there's not a lot of guys in the NBA who can do that, and that's very valuable. And if you're going to move Wendell Carter Jr., and you already kind of have an idea, because like I said, it's been rumored that the Pelicans are very interested, then I can kind of see why you did it. And maybe you'll be able to get off the contract because technically, look, he's getting right around 15, 17 million. We'll see if it's front-loaded. I need to know more details about it. But you could probably potentially move it. If he has one more good year, you can move it. That's a long-term contract that might be a little bit more difficult, but you have plenty to pair with it. You have plenty of short-term contracts and of guys who can offer 3-and-D production for competitive teams that they might be very interested in. So I think that the Magic left themselves with a lot of flexibility. They had a ton of cap space, and I think at the end of the day, when you have $50 million in cap space at the start of free agency, everybody's going to expect you to go out there and get a big fish. Well, they didn't do it, but they played it safe, and I feel like they are better than they were a few days ago. And at the end of the day, can you really ask for much more? But I'm very interested to hear what everybody is thinking in the comments. I know there's a level of disappointment, but is that relative to how much cap space we started with? Or do you actually believe that this front office settled for a level of mediocrity that they shouldn't have? I'd love to hear what everybody thinks in the comments. I think kind of on the fence about it. But in Paolo and Franz, I trust. And I think this team is going to be right back in the thick of things in the playoffs next year. But that's all the time that we have for today. I will see you next time.